All right, it's an interesting story here coming out of Emerson College, and this is in Boston. A creative writing professor. She's produced some work critical of white people, and in fact, she's written some publication pieces in which she kind of suggests here and has doubt as to whether black women and white women could be true friends. What? I have some friends, who are mutual friends, black women and white women. They get along just fine with each other. So, and that may apply to many of you. So some of you may be thinking, what is this all about? Well, to add on to that, the professor here, she has been appointed to an interim deanship. So she has been promoted, and there are some students who take issue with this. Part of it may be that she could be replaced once the college hires a new provost. And this is a lady here. Her name is Kim McLaren, Associate Professor of Creative Writing, not to be confused with McLaren Health here in Lansing. In fact, McLaren spelled differently here, so no connection there. Let's talk about all that. Let's kind of unpack it, if you will, with Francisco Gonzalez, an expert on tolerance and inclusion and the founder of a company that celebrates diversity. And he joins us now on the other end of our line. Good morning, Francisco. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well. So give me your thoughts here first of all, before we talk about kind of the professor here, but this idea or this doubt that this professor has that black women and white women can be true friends. What do you make of that based on any of her pieces that you may have read or heard about? What's your take on that?
Dave, I've gone back and read the article at least 5 times, and I keep arriving at the same conclusion. That is that she's a very good creative writer. She's getting really creative with her words there in that piece. And it's been, really infuriating to read because she comes from a place of victimhood. It seems that from the offset, when she writes, she automatically sets herself off as a victim of oppression at the hand of white women. It's very aggravating to see, and I think that in terms of intellect, it's intellectually offensive that she would put out a piece that is so unscientific. And I give her that at the start of the piece, she disclaimed that it's very unscientific.
Okay.
But I think to myself, why would a professor put out anything that's unscientific other than to maybe rile people up? I don't understand. It's very aggravating.
Yeah, it kind of was to me, and I'm not really understanding it either. And it's interesting too. Kind of aside from that, she was appointed to an interim deanship position. But yeah, that's interesting. And she also writes here. There's an essay for the Morning News, and she argues. She's talking about Morgan Freeman films. That I'm sure many of our listeners, who Morgan Freeman is by The Voice. That's how we all know him. But she says that his films are part of an effort by, quote, white America to, quote, remain at the center of black consciousness, end quote. Any idea what that means? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I got nothing in regards to that. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so that's actually, again, her just being very creative. Yeah. Her being very creative and trying to make a race issue out of nothing. I mean, Morgan Freeman, as far as I'm concerned, is the voice of America. You don't mess with the voice of America, and you don't bring the voice of America into this type of polemic. But again, she's trying to be relevant. I'm actually surprised by Emerson College promoting her the way that they have. But I guess in the era of wokeness, this is what's necessary for one to climb the ladder. She's working the game really well. If you ask me, I think that she's doing what she's supposed to do. She is delivering her lines on cue, and she's reaping the rewards of that.
Yeah. It sounds like. How much do you know about Emerson College? This is out of Boston here, because it doesn't seem like the school is really taken aback by some of her viewpoints. I mean, what does that say to us about the school? Any idea based on what you may or may not know about Emerson?
Well, I know very little about Emerson, and I spent the weekend trying to educate myself on that. And that there isn't. I mean, obviously the story that's out there, I guess, about Emerson is very curated, and they're very in charge of what people know in terms of their history. But I just it speaks to the society that we live in right now, where everything woke goes to turd.
Yeah.
To quote a very famous man. And so what's happening now is that we are seeing ourselves really just caught up in this unfortunate disservice to academia. I think that in the long run, this attitude and this philosophy is going to negatively affect Emerson College. I think they're going to find themselves unable to compete with true intellectual universities and colleges as the time passes, is
right.
What's going to happen. They're going to score their points right now. They're going to pander to the way I see it is it's the mainstream media that they're pandering to. They're giving the mainstream media the stories that it craves so that they can get the coverage that they want and hopefully get more applicants. But in the long run, the media is not going to come to save them when they are going to have to write a truly scientific piece and contribute to education.
Yeah.
And it's going to come and bite them in the butt, I think. And I find that with this woke movement...
You got 10 seconds, Francisco.
With this woke movement, I find that it's very unsustainable. It will burn itself out, I feel.
Francisco, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
The holidays